Hey, Pete.
Hey John, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. A little hot. I think my brain's a little fried today, but I'm working on it.
That's okay. Stay inside in the air conditioning because that's why we need facilities people to make sure we stay cool. And in talking about facilities people, today we have the pleasure of talking to Ted Vierling, who's the Chief Operations Officer for Katy ISD down in great state of Texas.
But Ted is a great guy, a great conversationalist. And he's got a really interesting background, so I'm excited to hear from him about some of the things he's doing down there and the things that not just he but the whole district is working on.
Me too. Yeah, he's got a little bit different path to get to where he is than some of us in the facilities business. So I am excited
Yeah.
to talk to him and see where the conversation goes.
All right. Well, let's get to it.
1 minute. Well, hello, everybody out there in podcast land today. This is John and Pete, and we are privileged today to have Theodore Ted Vierling, who is the Chief Operations Officer for the Katy Independent School District. And we're excited to hear what he has to say about buildings and leadership and that kind of stuff. So, Pete, take it away.
All right, Ted, welcome. Glad to have you here with us, man. Really good to be.
Well, thank you.
We've
I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic, fantastic. I know we've had some brief conversations prior to this, and I'm really excited about the kind of things you're doing there in the Katy School District. And so, really looking forward to hearing a bit about that and the things you're trying. But I would love to actually start with you giving us a little bit of a picture of how you got to where you are. We often find ourselves talking to CFOs or facilities people, and your path to COO is a little bit different. So can you start there for us?
Yeah, mine is a little different. Here's the deal. So I've been in Katy. Katy is a little town. I say little. It's not little anymore. The area isn't. About 30 miles west of Houston. So suburban district, but becoming urban as Houston grows out to us, right? So I moved into Katy. We moved to Katy. My family did in 1977. I've been here ever since, except for when I went to college. So I was a kindergartner way back when, and have gone all the way through Katy schools, graduated, and then went to college and came right back and taught. And so, to get to your point there, Pete, my experience with operations and facilities is a little different than most. I was a teacher. I started teaching in 1998. I was a teacher for 4 years. Was an assistant principal for about 4 years as well, and then I was a principal for about 13 years. So high school and junior high first, and then high school. The high school I was a principal at had 4,000 kids at the time, so a big high school
Yeah.
in the suburban district, and it was a fantastic opportunity. I loved. Kids are awesome. The community was awesome. It was a great opportunity for me, and leaving there was one of those things that was very difficult to do. But the opportunity that presented itself in this district, the superintendent at the time was very big on having former principals on his cabinet. Um, wasn't as concerned about the content knowledge, the facility knowledge, as he was about the people piece of it, and then the connection to campuses and how that significant impact that the facilities folks have on kids and teachers. So he was big on that. The guy that was in this job before me was the same. Was a long time building principal, and we just sort of followed suit, and I just came up right behind him. And it's been a great opportunity. Very different in the
Yeah.
facilities world. When you get into this, and you guys probably know that, there's a whole new nomenclature for facilities people than there is for school people, right? I knew all the SPED terminology and all the teaching terminology and all that kind of stuff. When I say SPED, I mean special ed. Sorry, there I go. And then when you get into this job, then you got to know HVAC and ROI and all those things, right? So a big change, but I've got some great people working for me that have helped me along the way, and now I feel like I'm just dangerous enough to do some real stuff in the operations world. I've been in this job since 2018.
So I think that's really cool. And one of the whole points behind our podcast here is that leadership is leadership, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have technical skills as opposed to leadership skills. But can you talk to us a little bit about how you maintain your credibility coming into an organization like that as a principal, not having a facilities background. Did you get any pushback from the folks that worked for you? Did you get any pushback from the community saying that you weren't the right person for this kind of work?
Uh, to be honest with you, none. And I think it's the way, and I'm not, when you guys ask questions, I don't want to sound like I'm tooting horns or whatever. I'm just telling you what kind of my theory is on life and dealing with people. It really boils down to how I kind of view leaders and leadership. I'm not the man. I'm not the guy. I have a title, fantastic, right? But that doesn't make you the expert. That doesn't make you some kind of automatic genius or wizard, or you all of a sudden know all the answers. So just like when I was a principal, coming from the junior high to the high school, there's a credibility thing there, right? Because high school teachers, there's nobody harder than a high school teacher to impress. Trust me. And I've done all these levels, and I'm telling you that's the case. So when you come to a high school from a junior high, what do you know? What do you know about high school? What do you know about calculus? Okay, so I got to walk into a calculus classroom, and I gotta watch this gal teach, and I'm gonna tell her how she should teach better. So I think it's really more about the way I approached the situation than it was needing credibility. It was kind of like, look, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell you guys, look, I don't know as much as you do, and I'm perfectly fine saying that, and I want to learn from you, and I want to support you. Right? Support is a big piece of all this. Leadership. People think that leadership means that you are now in charge. Okay, well, you sort of are, but you also aren't, because without the people below you doing the real work, my job is just to make their lives easier doing the work that they do. And if you've got good people working for you, well, then that's really easy to do. You just make sure they have the resources. You make sure they have the support. You make sure you back them up when they're in a pinch. And then hold them accountable, obviously. But also the other thing that I really try to do and still do is when I'm talking, and we talked the other day, so you guys kind of know this already. But when I'm talking to the dudes, or the guys, the women and men that go out and do this real work, you don't talk like you're a COO. Talk like you're a human being, right? And
Yeah.
you thank
Yeah.
them profusely for what they do, and you respect them for what they do, whether they're cleaning the building and they don't speak English, or whether they're rebuilding a chiller and their knowledge base is way more than mine will ever be. So it's really about treating people right. So that's a really long answer to a short question. I'm sure there's people out there that go, what is this guy doing? Really, does he know anything about it? But truthfully, I think you can win people over just by treating them right and supporting them.
I love that response, Ted. I mean, John and I are both old enough to have been around when the person filling this role was always just the oldest person with the most time with the wrench in their hand. And frankly, that didn't always lead to putting people in charge who had the best leadership skills, right? It meant they might know how to break down the chiller and put it back together, but they might have very little skills to do that other work. As a principal, certainly you had a lot of work developing talent and putting people in a better position to be better teachers tomorrow. What are you thinking about in terms of developing the people in your operations organization to be better at what they do as leaders, to maybe even someday take over your job?
Yeah, so we're big believers in leadership development in this department. Maybe not, we haven't always been, but with two educators now in this role over the last 10 years, I think there's a real focus on building leaders from within. We touched on this and we kind of chatted the other day. We in the operations group, the facilities group, you tend to promote people who, number one, work really hard, right? They're always there. They're always showing up. They do good work. They're thorough. They follow up, right? They know their stuff. Those are the people that you promote, and they deserve promotions, right? Because
Sure.
they've proven that they've earned your respect and and they earn the extra money and all of that stuff that goes with it. But what we found is that we don't always teach those folks how to deal with the day-to-day stuff. The talking to a principal, somebody who has a doctorate. How does a guy who's been working on chillers his whole life is now promoted, and now he's got to interact with a principal that has a doctorate, right? And there's a real intimidation factor and things like that. How do you work with folks as a leader now, right? He or she's in a leadership position. So how do you work with folks who don't work as hard as you do? How do you get them? How do you handle a guy who's drinking on the job?
Yeah.
Right? We don't do a very good job, I don't think, in the operations or facilities group of really teaching these people how to be leaders and how to deal with these difficult situations. So we do a little thing here that we've been doing now for 3-4 years. It's a leadership academy. We call it the Operations Leadership Academy. It's nothing brilliant that I came up with. I just lifted the idea from the school side, from the education side. We have a program in our district where we develop assistant principals to be principals. And so I just lifted some of those concepts, broke them down a little bit because we didn't need to get to that level that these guys are getting to. And we've been doing this now with our kind of mid-level managers, developing them over the last 3 or 4 years. And, it's been good. It really has. It gives us an opportunity to kind of see people and talk to folks and get an idea of what they're thinking, and then build them, build their leadership skills, and then maybe find some folks that, will take that next step. It's been good. And it's been good for my executive directors because I have 4 executive directors. I've got transportation, food service, new facilities, and then maintenance. And so it's been good for them because none of those folks come up through the education leadership ranks. They've all come up through doing food service or maintenance or whatever it is. So it's been good for them too to kind of learn those skills.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm always fascinated by these programs. Do you have it's a formal training, it's an informal training, and how long does it take? Is there a recognition at the end of it?
Well, it's about as informally formal as you can get, because again, I want to be at a level where I'm not. I don't want any kind of I don't know if it's the right word, but pomposity, or I don't want it to be like somebody's coming into a lecture in a college class, right? We want to keep it conversational and real, and give them an opportunity to talk amongst themselves and talk about things. We try to mix people up. So we do it. We do 4 or 5 of these a year, being respectful of their time, right? So we the kind of the format's pretty simple. We bring everybody together. There's no more than probably 40, 50 of us at a time, right? And,
Still a pretty
so
good
it's
sized
not
group.
a huge group, but it's a decent sized group. And we'll have lunch, nothing fancy, but we'll do a little working lunch or whatever. And then every class has kind of a program, right? I'll usually do some intro stuff, just kind of introduce the topic of the day, what we're talking about. We may have guest speakers. We may have my executive directors teach the class. We brought folks in from human resources to talk about how to deal with difficult people. We have had guest speakers from outside the district come in and talk. We've had principals come in and talk and talk about what makes a successful relationship with operations folks. We try to do it so where they're talking to each other. We mix all the folks up. So we try to mix our transportation people with food service, with maintenance and all that, so that they're not just talking to their friends, because otherwise that's all they'll do. They'll just talk to each other and they won't, get anything done. Try to push a little bit, to get them to really thinking about themselves, think inwardly, and be, a little critical of yourself, and kind of, recognize what you don't do well. I'm a big guy about, kind of turning the mirror around on yourself and going, okay, it's okay to say you got some things you need to work on. What are those? And again, the sessions are about an hour and a half, and nothing terribly formal, but there is an agenda, and there is a presentation usually to go with it. And so there you go.
Is it you talked about introducing a lot of different voices there. Is it a fixed curriculum and you have different people participating, or are you still evolving what you're teaching?
It's super fluid. It really is. Like in the past, we've sort of, uh, the five of us, my executive directors, myself, have kind of come up with some topics, and we've kind of said, here's kind of things we think they need, whatever. And so we've done that for a few years, and now we've graduated to the point where we realize, look, let's ask the folks that are in the classes, what they would benefit from. And so we've done that this year. That was last spring, and so at the end of the year, and then this fall we'll start up with some stuff that's really based on kind of what they're looking for. And then we're going to bring in some other folks. Some of those mid-level manager people that were in the class last year, they're now going to be teaching some of these sessions. So It
Nice.
sort of takes them to the next level too, right? Because you don't really master anything until you teach it. I can sit in a Civil War class, which I did in college, and I loved it, and I can learn about the Civil War, but you don't really know it until you get in front of a bunch of folks and teach it. And so that's kind of that next level of leadership. And two, that group that's going to be talking, they're not always comfortable getting in front of people and doing those kinds of things. And if we're going to have those people step into these shoes later on, then they need to be able to address folks, and they may be addressing the school board one day, or a group of parents at a bond committee meeting, or whatever it is, right? They're going to have to do that. So it helps them grow too.
I'd like to tie this to something you had mentioned earlier, the concept of support. You were talking about in your role, you need to support your staff. But ultimately, as a former teacher and a former principal, you know that facilities and the operations folks are to support ultimately the students and the staff and the teachers. Can you talk a little bit about how do you take any of your ethics and your goals for the organization and make that a part of your leadership training for your staff, or are there other ways that you get that across? How do you get your folks to understand what's important at a high level as well?
That's a really deep question. We've got these kind of four pillars, right? Communication, customer service, teamwork, and relationships. Right? Those are our four big ones in operations. We paste that all over our stuff. We've got it posted on, bulletin boards and in our offices and things like that. And it's really kind of just four things that we really just try to live by. Right? I'm not a big mission statement guy, because who remembers a mission statement? Nobody, right? But if you throw some big conceptual stuff up there that people can connect with, I think that's a big deal. So the thing we push probably the most is the customer service and the relationship piece of it. That's where we've got to be. And I think our guys get it. We're here to support kids, and anytime I get in front of our people, whether it's a group of five or a group of 500, the whole thing is, we're here to support kids. But remember that without you guys, our teachers can't do what they do, and our kids can't learn. Right? If the bus doesn't run, the kid doesn't get to school. If the kid doesn't eat, the kid doesn't learn. If the AC doesn't come on, you're dead, because it's 100 degrees here in Houston today. I try to appeal to their almost parental kind of side, right? That they feel that level of importance in what they do. Because here's the thing: I have had 1,000 people tell me, "No, I'm just a," and then you fill in the blank. No, 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 no. You're not just a. You're not just at all, right? You may not be paid the most of anybody on campus, but somebody wants a clean bathroom, and that's important. And so we really try to instill that in our folks, and I try to instill that in my leaders, my executive directors, and their direct reports, because I think if people feel valued in what they do, there's so much there's so much judgment in the world on, well, you just do this or you're just that. Well, no, you know, they're doing good work and they're doing good work for kids. And I think the more they feel that connection, I think the better off we are.
To that point about that impression in the world that you're just such and such, does that work you do extend to helping the rest of the community understand the value you see in the department and helping them understand it? Are you talking to principals? Are you talking to superintendent chairs? Are you talking to other leaders about
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that you get me in front of a group and I'm going to talk about my team and tell you how great they are. No question. I think the hardest group it is to get a hold of is the community, just because you can do things at school board meetings. We were just at a school board meeting last Monday, in our group, my executive director and myself, we presented about some cost saving stuff that we're doing for the district. Bottom line is, you know, we've since 2017 we've gotten $4 million worth of rebate checks from Centerpoint Energy, which is our energy provider, and then we save about $3 million a year on energy utilities because of some of the stuff that they're doing behind the scenes, right? So anyway, so we're at the school board meeting doing that, and that gives me an opportunity to step back and really say to the school board, I want you to see what my guys are doing,
Yeah.
my guys and gals. I want you to see what they're doing. That's not Ted, oh boy, does Ted run a great department. No, let me show you what my guys are doing. So that's the way kind of I do it. Our district has also been very supportive in our communications department, and recognizing the work of a custodial staff that does a great job. We have a thing we call a Star Pen Award in our maintenance department, and we'll get a compliment from a principal or a secretary or something like that, and they say, "Oh, we had a big event last night, and our custodial team did a fantastic job. They got all the chairs up, it was all cleaned up, and it was ready for the next day. What a great job! Thank you." And so we'll go out. Me and my executive director will go out to the campus, and we will recognize that custodial team. We give them a little gold star. They can put it on their name badge or their hat or their collar or whatever, and do a little thing. And I'm telling you guys, like, you'd be surprised how many times people have cried when we
That's
come
awesome.
out there and recognize them. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's a nothing thing. It's like a $2.25 little star, but just the fact that they know that you care enough to come out there and do that. And then the district will, they'll put that out on social media or something like that.
Nice.
Or we have every school district on the planet has like a Teacher of the Year awards thing, right?
Sure.
And so Katy IC, of course, had a Teacher of the Year award ceremony. And then a few years ago, me and my executive director are kicking some ideas around, and we're like, well, how come we don't have an operations employee of the year? Well, that's a good question. Why don't we? And we should have one from each of the three big departments: transportation, food service, and maintenance. And so the district was super supportive. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so now at the Teacher of the Year awards banquet, we get the bus driver of the year and the maintenance worker of the year, and and the food service worker of the year, and they are recognized, and they dress up in nice clothes like everybody else, and they come and they bring their husband or wife, and they walk across the stage and they shake hands with board members and superintendent, and it's a really cool thing. It's not really that hard to do. It's just recognizing people for doing a great job, and it's so cool. I ain't gonna name off names and stuff, but yeah, like I remember the first one we did was our irrigation guy, right? Our irrigation, we had like 3 guys in the whole district that do irrigation. We got 181 square miles at school district, and almost 90 campuses, and we got 3 guys, and one of our irrigation guys was the operations employee of the year that year. And man, you thought we crowned him king, and it was awesome. It was awesome. So those are the kinds of things we do. I don't know if I answered your question there, John. I might have fumbled. That was a lot of words, but that's kind of what I'm getting at.
No,
Well, I was interested, regardless of whether it answered the question or not. When you were a teacher, what did you think of the facilities team?
our facilities team, and I've been in the district a long time, right? I told you that, right? Like as a kid and then now as a teacher. So our facilities team, uh, because of leaders that were in that group, has really improved over time. I mean, they went from truthfully at one point almost a laughing stock, but again, I think it was because of leadership or lack thereof, right? And then you get some folks in there, and this is before me, long before me, and the good leaders that came in were before me too. And each one of those leaders took kind of that next step and saying, no, we're not gonna do it like this. We're gonna be first class, right? And you guys know, you study enough leadership stuff, right? Like going from the bottom to here, super easy, because all you gotta do is just like care, show up, fix something, right? But getting from here to here, okay, that's tricky, right? That's the hard part. So we had a couple of maintenance directors that got from here to here, and then we're now up here, and so the expectation is, how do we get even that much better? And that's the hard part. But I think, but again, overall, our goal in our operations group, the four groups, is, we're going to continue to try to get better, provide better services, be responsive, communicate better. But again, that's the four pillars thing, right? Like those are some things you can really focus on, and recenter when you need to, and say, guys, look, this is what we signed on for. This is what we got to be, and right now we're not that. So let's do better with those things.
This this might be a bit of a stretch, but I guess I'm wondering if you think that there's any way to measure a tie between that sort of that departmental excellence you're describing and success in the classroom, success for teachers, success for students. Is there a way to connect those things that is either measurable or at least tangible, so that you can continue to make that tie that you're talking about?
So Pete, you're looking to do like a doctorate, and you're going to do that. I'm telling you, that would be one heck of a case study. I don't know if there's one out there, but that would be one heck of a one. If you could really go back and look at a school and go, okay, look, we did this, we turned this school from this to this facility wise, and then look at the scores. But I'll tell you this: a kid that is in a rundown, junked up, graffiti covered school when the AC doesn't work half the time and whatever, I just, you can't convince me that kid is going to try as hard or care about his or her school the way you would if you didn't. We had a school. There's not a school in Katy ISD that you would look at and go, oh boy, because you guys probably been in some schools, right? And probably some that look pretty rough. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, right? Funding or lack of maintenance or whatever it is, right? Forget the reason, just it's a rough place. And so we don't really have any schools in Katy that would even come close to that. Our community has been very supportive over the years with bond programs and supporting us that way. But we had a high school that we did a comprehensive renovation on a few years ago. It was built in, I think it opened in '83, right? And it wasn't a bad school by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't airy, and it just looked rough after that many years. And we did this huge renovation and created some new learning spaces and changed the paint, and it was just such a better place for kids. And it was interesting because you hear the principal talk, and she would say things like, wow, what a difference. The kids approach, they just look at the campus differently. They feel differently about their school. Not every kid, who we kidding? But as a group, they feel different about their school than they did before.
Yeah.
We don't see the graffiti we were seeing, those kinds of things. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that. Absolutely. The
Well,
people, the more stuff you tear up. I'll give you a good example: Disney World. Okay, and I'm a Disney guy, so I'm a little biased, but Disney World is a place where you go and you don't see piles of trash laying everywhere, right? Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, they make sure that they get their trash cleaned up. But because the trash is cleaned up, you don't see people just throwing stuff, right? Now, earlier this summer, we went to a unnamed park. I'm not going to say what it was. Totally different thing. It wasn't Disney. But because
Yeah.
they probably didn't have the respect for their facilities that they should, then this is what you get. And I'm a firm believer in that. I really do think that has an impact, and that goes back to the custodial services and stuff working, and bathroom doors that aren't hanging off the thing, and not having toilets that are covered up with trash bags for 2 months. It all
Well,
has an impact.
and the theory from my dissertation, which you're now driving me toward, is that
You're welcome.
thank you. Is that it's not just the kids, right? I think it's, to your point, the principal was lifted
So
by it. The
100%.
teachers get lifted by it. And so there's this interesting correlation about that investment. Just the way those Disney employees, you never meet a Disney employee who comes off saying that was the worst place I ever worked, right? They
Right.
talk about how excited they are to be celebrating and serving that entertainment community that they're a part of. And I think there's something to be said about that, right? And I think it's fascinating to think about that connection that exists between the work you're doing.
I've always
And
been.
also the fact that it doesn't have to do with money, because those are the things that you're talking about are very, very small cost items. And if you talk to anybody that's ever worked for Disney, Disney doesn't pay a lot of money, but those are
No,
still the most passionate employees that you're ever going to get.
I,
Well,
I,
th-
I agree. I've
well,
always been fascinated. I've always been fascinated by the customer service piece of Disney. Right. That to me is fascinating. That like if you can make people feel good about their experience. And again, I'm not necessarily talking about theme parks. I'm talking about if you can make people feel good about the experience they're having in their school or their office or whatever it is. I think it has a real impact on their day to day, whether it's a kid's performance or principals.
But we're on the same page because when I was in New York City, we hired someone from Disney as the chancellor's customer service
Yeah,
response person.
yeah,
So yeah, you're right about that.
chase
yeah.
chase that a little bit more though, right? Because it isn't Disney, but some people would think about your description of Katy ISD as Disney. Right? You talk about not having a bad building, so maybe a little more specifics there about what kinds of investments you think are the most important ones, right? Because not everybody's in a position to have all of their buildings operating perfectly, but it is probably possible to have a building that students want to be excited to be in, even if it's a tough building.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. Our community has been very supportive, and that whatever you do, whether it's bad or good, right, it will build on itself. Okay, so if you allow your building to look bad, if you don't clean your building, if you don't take care of the basics. I'm not talking about a comprehensive renovation. Not everybody has $35 million to throw at a school and change it all up and that sort of thing. But if you can make your building functional and you can stop allowing people to post junk all over the walls and allow trash to collect in the corner and when kids throw food in the trash can and it bounces off the brick, do you care? Those are all just little things that truthfully, even with very little money, you can attend to. And again, I just think I think a negative or a positive will continue to build on itself. So if you allow your building to look a certain way, well, then it's going to look a certain way. And I think the principal has a huge piece of that too. I was a principal. You're not just going to stick something up on the walls with some kind of crazy black tape that's going to, mess up a wall. And you're not going to leave your trash on the table. And by God, you're not going to tell me there's a custodian to clean up after you. I'm going to tell you that. So, you as a building principal got to be a facility leader too, even though that's not what you went to school for.
That's great. I'm glad you brought that up because I used to have fights all the time with principals when we would have vandalism in bathrooms.
Yeah.
And the first thing that our custodian engineer would say is, who's supervising these kids and what role do you see now in your new role? Has it changed the way you view the role of the principal as it regards to facilities issues?
No, not at all. I think what it does is though it eases that conversation that you're talking about
Yeah, yeah.
because they know that I've been in their shoes. They know I've chased kids and in and out of bathrooms, and I get it, right? But you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
I've had a million conversations with principals about that, and I've said just that. Hey, I get it. I get it. It's tough. Let me figure out a way to help. Let me see what we can do. You know, maybe you lock that set of bathrooms and you filter everybody to another one. Let's get the assistant soup involved. Let's get somebody. Let's get a behavior person involved. Let's get security to maybe patrol that bathroom a little bit more. But that whole thing that just doesn't work. And that's one of the benefits of having a former principal sitting in this chair, because I can say stuff that maybe you can't,
Yeah.
because I've walked the walk, and that's a big thing. The principals are already impressed than facilities people. I promise you that for sure. You got to kind of you got to walk a mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So you brought it all the way back to that leadership concept again. It's all about leadership at the facilities level, leadership at the COO level, leadership at the principal and superintendent. Right? Everybody's got to be invested in leading. The people will probably do the right thing if you set the right context for them, but it's about giving them the setting to really deliver, and they want to deliver. Most of the time, I've found they want to be right there helping those students be successful if they just get the chance to do it.
yep. And man, as a leader, and our superintendent is fantastic because he is just a dude. He's just a guy. He doesn't come into a room and people, superintendent's here. He does command respect, obviously, right? And he does, the position commands respect, and he does too. But he doesn't ever talk to you like and he's got a doctorate. He doesn't ever talk to you like you're some kind of dullard or that you don't know anything. He's just a regular guy. And I think being a leader, whatever level you're at, I think you've got to kind of put yourself down a peg and go, okay, slow your roll there, guy. You're not as big a deal as you think you are. When I was at A&M, Texas A&M, I was in the ROTC program there, right? And I did not go in the military, but I was a firm believer in the kind of leadership things that it taught me. And I was we were on a field training exercise. I was a sophomore in college, and I think it was Fort Hood that we were at. And we're talking to this sergeant, and he's basically in charge of this troop transport tank looking thing, right? Forgive my terminology. And he says, he's kind of a grizzled old fella. And he was like, you guys are going to be a bunch of officers one day, but you know what? You better take care of people like me, because I can make you look real good or I can make you look real bad. Yeah. And I remember that to this day. I remember it to this day. And that dude, he probably has no idea he made an effect on anybody, but man, it sure made an effect on me. And that's why I'm a big believer in people that are that I'm in charge of, to treat them right and treat them as equals. And yes, there are times when you got to be firm with people, absolutely. Well, you got to tell somebody you're not getting it done, or you got to write them up, or you got to fire them, or whatever it is. I'm not saying I'm that guy that just lets people do whatever, but I don't ever want people thinking they can't come in my office and just have a conversation because I'm just a guy,
Yep.
And I just think that's a really important piece of leadership that people miss. They get so caught up in this positional leadership, and you're just missing the mark.
So it's called an armored personnel carrier.
There you go. That's the
I'm
one.
glad that you walked away from that, remembering the leadership lesson and not worried about what the truck was called.
No, I didn't care. I knew I wasn't going to be in the military at that point, but I was taking some good lessons from Sergeant York or whatever it was back in the day. No, it was good. It was good.
That's awesome. I think we should bring this conversation to a close, Ted. I have really, really enjoyed it. I think, John, with your smile, I think you have too. And really appreciate you spending some time with us today and just sharing some really great thoughts from the Leadership Academy straight on through to the way in which you and the people around you are leading in Katy ISD. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, you bet. Anything I can do to help, I'm happy to do it. So if people want ideas or bounce stuff off me or call me and tell me I'm a total joke, that's fine too. Whatever. I'm just here to help. So yeah, it's good. Hope it helps.
Uh,
It sure did. I appreciate it as well, and thank you for what you do. It's
You
important
bet.
work.
You bet.
yeah.
Thank you.